Paul, thank you very much for sitting down with us on our Conversa.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much. So let's start with a quick intro before we dive deeply into the world of cricket bats and cricket gear, which you are into now. And a lot of myths and intricacies surrounding the topic of cricket bats, what is good, what is not good. But while our intent is that this conversation is a continuation of a lot of stuff that you have posted on your own YouTube channel, which is followed a lot. We want also this to be a conversation where a lot of beginners can learn, can still learn new things about cricket bats. But before we go there, if you don't mind, let us start with a quick intro of yourself. You mentioned in one of your YouTube videos that you had some background in construction. So can you please shed some more light on what brought you to cricket first, and then your first class journey, and then the introduction to manufacturing cricket bats? If you can just take us through that quickly.
Yeah, well, cricket, I played cricket, my dad played cricket, so I loved it. Loved being around cricket, loved just everything about it. I loved being with, back in the, when I was a kid, there wasn't so much junior cricket around. There was junior cricket, but it wasn't a big thing. And so for me, just being down the cricket club with adults, it made you feel grown up, and you just felt part of something. So, as a kid, I'd go everywhere with my dad. My dad was big into his. He used to be a hockey umpire as well, so I'd go and I was involved with hockey. So I played county hockey. Just loved sport in general. But cricket was my love. And it became my love because seeing a certain Mr. Botham in the 81 Ashes series, and before that, it just inspired me. I always wanted to be Ian Botham.
Wow. And
unfortunately, I didn't quite have his talent, but it didn't stop me wanting to be Ian Botham. And that was it, so I started playing adult cricket at 11 years old, and we moved from down in Derby up to the Peak District actually when I was 10. So, but I still played down here. So youngsters look at me a bit gone out nowadays when you talk about commitment, because my dad was a very busy person. He had his commitments with work. He was a very good classical singer, so he had a lot of commitments with that. And he said, if you want to carry on playing cricket down at Swarkston, which is where I grew up, then you've got to work out how you're going to get there when I'm not
because
able
Peak
to
District
take you.
is a bit further away from there, yeah?
40 miles away.
40 miles, yeah.
So I went, right, okay. So this is 11, 12 years old. I mean, you can't imagine parents allowing it now, but I used to walk the 2 miles to the next village to Carver with my kit bag. I'd catch the bus to Chesterfield, 12 miles into Chesterfield. I'd change at Chesterfield, and I'd catch the bus into Derby, and then Derby into the next village from where the cricket club was, and someone would pick me up. I'd stay and play Saturday and Sunday, stay someone's house, wherever, and my dad would pick me up on the Sunday, or he'd come and play on the Sunday with me. So I loved playing cricket at Swarkston. I loved the people there. I felt comfortable doing it. But I never played any age group cricket in the county age group. Yeah. So I could play, but just wasn't spotted, really. So my love and desire for playing was I always wanted to be in both of them. I wanted to be a professional cricketer. The thought that it would happen was, chances were 1,000,000 to 1 as far as I was concerned, but I was just lucky that I had a supportive dad who, if you wanted to do something, he would back you. Wow. And it wasn't, that didn't mean financially, it just meant the support. And so I was always brought up, look, if you're going to do something, you commit to it.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest thing. And I just loved it, and it wasn't. So I was quite small for my age as well. So it wasn't until I was sort of really, probably about 17, 18, that I started. When I left school, and as you mentioned, I went onto the building sites, So at 17, 18, I started to get a little bit stronger, a little bit bigger. And all of a sudden I was starting to get noticed a little bit, you know.
Okay.
So, and out of that I'd go and at nights go and bowl in the winter nets at Derbyshire. And I just loved doing that.
Wow.
Again, never with any thoughts of, you know, that you'd get a contract or anything.
Yeah.
Never even, you know, I just loved being around professional sports people, and they looked after me. You know, you rocked up and there was internationals in there, and you'd run in and bowl, and you learnt, and then I'd go off and be on the building sites in the day. You know, so that's just the way it was, and the whole system was totally different to nowadays. In many ways, I think for the better. You know, but my years in construction were really working for companies. I used to work for a company that did a lot of stuff for the National Trust, which everything was bespoke. So, but it was the latter days of where you used to go into the old joiners' shops and you'd see people making beautiful oak doors or sash windows all by hand. It wasn't, and then I saw it where they went from the old joiners' shops to industrial units with CNC machines, and it lost its mystique. It wasn't so fascinating when you walked in, because it was basically a bloke programming numbers, a bit of wood went in that end, came out the other, and then they had all these machines doing different parts, and then they'd have a bloke putting it all together. It was like flat packs, and it sort of lost something. And so that's where, I suppose for me, I suppose rose-tinted glasses, isn't it? But my memories of the old skills and trades,
Craftsmanship,
have stuck with me. So that was it. And right through, I didn't get a professional cricket contract till I was 26.
Wow.
So I was working all the hours I could to play as much cricket as I could in the summer. So, and even then, it was before the internet, really. So I basically wrote to counties to see if they wanted a net bowler, and that's how I did it. And then eventually, someone would get injured. Oh, who's that young lad who was
bowling there in the nets?
Can he come? So he can play. So they'd phone me up probably the day before. So I'd just disappear from work. I'd get the sack more times. You know, it was all right to start with, but after a bit it wore thin with the bosses and you get the sack, you go and find another job, and then you go and do it again. But there were happy times, and out of that I got to meet some incredible people who have been so kind to me over life. People like the great Jeff Miller, the great England player, and I still see him now, and he was like a cricketing dad to me, Jeff was. And when he'd just finished playing county cricket, so he went from Derbyshire to Essex, and he finished. I think he had a year off, and then he went to play minor counties. And he actually phoned me up. I didn't know him before that, other than going to his old shop in Chesterfield. But he phoned me up to say, I've heard a bit about you. I'm going to play for Cheshire next year.
Okay.
Next season, would you like to come to nets with me? So it was like, yeah, great. This is Jeff Miller, you know. And so I used to chuck all my kit in the back of the car. So I'd finish on site, I'd dust myself down, have a change of clothes. I'd drive up to Chesterfield from Derby, meet him at his house, and I would sit in his old black BMW, I still remember it now, and I'd sit in his car, we'd drive the 2 hours over to Cheshire for the winter nets, and I'd sit and hear all these beautiful stories of Botham, Gower, Lamb, and I still ask him for, I deserve some financial reward, because I actually really I was listening to the rehearsals of his after dinner speaking, which has been so successful. So I had the great fortune of just spending nights that I look forward to every single week, going and listening to stories about my heroes. And those people who I've met over the years have never let me down.
Wow. And this is what you said when you were in there in your store, that you can't buy these memories. I mean, today players can earn a lot of money, but they can't have these memories which you were so privileged to have.
Yeah, the money's incredible now.
Incredible now, yes.
My first professional contract for 6 months at 26 years old was £4,500.
Wow, for a year.
I'd have taken half of it.
Wow. Wow.
Because it's everything
Because
I
of
wanted
that.
to do. And so, yeah, so out of that, I got support from people like Jeff and the great Mike Hendrick.
Yeah.
And they were all so good to me. And the people who come and I feel very privileged now, people like John Morris, who used to be in the winter nets. When I was a kid, he was one of the stars. And I used to rock up, bowl in the nets at him, and he was lovely to me. And never, right throughout my career, and even now, never been anything but generous. Never been anything other than generous to me. And I just feel very fortunate now. I mean, you've been in our little workshop at home. It's a unique place. And I get my heroes who are friends coming and sitting and having a beer and shooting the breeze. And it's so nice.
And sorry for interrupting, but what you mentioned about your early interactions with craftsmanship, about glass and steelwork and woodwork and so on, that with whatever time we have spent up to now, I can clearly say that reflects in your craftsmanship of cricket bats. Because these bats do not look like the commercially available bats which are in the stores all over the world, in our part of the world, India, Pakistan, Dubai, and even in England. They are not the same. They have that touch of elegance and craftsmanship that we hear from you, that you were introduced to.
I hope so, and it's very nice of you to say so. I've always felt we'd got something different.
Yeah.
I'm a massive supporter of trades. I love trades, no matter what they are. People have bypassed trades for years now. You know, tech is the thing. If you know, and people with, not everyone's tech minded. Not everyone. Some people work with the hands, and there's as much brain work going in that as working with tech.
Yeah.
But it's almost been cast aside in many ways because it's not classed as skilled. Well, actually, around this area used to be huge sort of clothing manufacturing and things. So as well as pits. So Coles, you know, there was a pit just down here, and there's one in the next village. But lots of hosiery factories and things like that. Incredibly skilled people.
Wow.
But they worked on a production line.
Yeah.
But it's skilled. You try and sew the hem of your trousers. You try and do it on a day-to-day. It's an incredibly skilled process. Yeah. And I just find I find it sad for this country that we've passed so many skills on to other nations, because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
Well, I've always believed work is good for the soul, because we talk about mental health and everything now. Well, if you sat doing nothing, what's your brain doing?
Yeah, nothing.
So if you can create something of worth, I think it's good for you.
Yeah.
And so we fully intend to set on another apprentice at some point. So we've got Neil. Neil's halfway. There's a mature apprentice, but we intend to take another one on at some point, because we think it's important. And we'll never be the biggest company in the world, but as I look at it, like my cricket career is, you a step at a time, but you always try and be the best you can be. So for me, I just look at it that way, and that's how we've never been greedy. We've not tried to chuck loads of stuff out there just to make the brand look big.
Yeah.
We just do what we do, and that's it.
And I think in a longer run, as cricket is growing now globally, there will be a demand and there will be a segment of players and professionals who will prefer to have the kind of thing that you do rather than what is commercially available out there, just because of sponsorships and so on.
Yeah, I think so. And you know, we get the pros coming in.
Yeah,
you know, they stick their sponsors labels on, and it's quite funny because we stamp our name in the edge of every bat that goes out. So it's quite funny because obviously sponsors don't like it. So the batters, they put bat tape across it. So you can't, but we know whose it is, and that's fine, you know. But I just think it's one of those things that what we do, we know there's loads of bat companies out there.
Yeah.
But there's not many do what we do.
I agree with whatever little I have seen. I mean, obviously, I'm not a professional player, but I have been now engaged with cricket for quite a while. So obviously, you observe a lot, you see a lot, and definitely what you are doing is different. And Paul, I think what we were missing out earlier on in the conversation we wanted to have today is a little bit talk about coaching and age group cricket and so on, which I think you have been deeply involved with. So we will definitely touch on to that as the conversation goes along. But if we can just try and finish out the bat part or the manufacturing of the cricket bat parts, then I think we have space for a lot of other small topics that we want to cover. So when we talk about cricket bats, I mean, let's talk about a little bit about the willow, the wood itself. So where is the best willow coming from today? We see a lot of manufacturers claiming English willow. Is that all English willow? Also, we heard about Kashmir willow, English willow, the comparisons. Have you seen both? Have you compared it? And what have you found?
I've not had any dealings with Kashmir willow. I've seen it in the past. I've not had any dealings with it. Never saw any when I was playing professionally.
Okay.
We see bats come in that people bring in for repair and refurb and stuff like that, which we think must be Kashmir.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to say what's what. The stuff we've seen isn't as pretty.
As pretty.
As a
Okay.
rule.
Yeah.
There's a lot of companies that are now using European willow. How do people know?
And when you say European, it's not necessarily English willow. It might be coming from other European.
It's generally Eastern European.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's an interesting one.
So how does the public know? Because for all the regulation that we've got in the UK now, all the regulation we've got on kit, which is now classed as PPE, ludicrously. We won't go into that. I could fill a week's video with it. But I mean, we have got down. We've taken it to Westminster. We've got to Westminster with it.
Wow.
But because it's something else that's taking it away from the common man, because it's hiking prices all the time. But if you're going to put any regulations, it should be the fact that is this English willow or is it Eastern European willow? Is it Kashmiri willow? There should be some form of legislation on it, I think, because the public deserve. My view has always been, right from the get-go, is the public, if they're paying good money, should get what they're paying for.
Yeah.
Fact. Doesn't mean cricket bats, just cricket bats, it means anything in life.
Yeah.
You should be paying for what you get, what you're asking for.
Agreed.
Not, so why, for me, why is it nowadays, we're still using, we're still using English willow. So why is it that there's a massive thing on the market now where bats are barely lasting a year or struggling to last 2 years?
Yeah.
They used to last 7, 8, 10 years. And what's the difference? What's changed? So for me, it's about realism and value, because at the end of the day, it's still people's hobby.
Yeah.
So, I mean, let's face it, if I was paying £1,000 for a cricket bat, I'd want to sit with my feet up with a beer in hand while I watched it go out and score 1,000 runs for me. I would, honestly. And because it's outpricing itself.
Yeah.
And if it's outpricing itself now, it's outpricing itself to the general public.
Yeah, it is.
Because it's becoming more elitist financially.
Yeah.
And if I look at it and put my old coach's head on, it's only a certain element of the youngsters that are being looked at as cricketers because they're the only ones whose parents can afford to do it.
Is that really happening?
It's a huge thing. We see it a lot in here. It costs so much money, you know.
When I heard your stories now of how you were able to make it to practice and games and how much your parents were able to support, and then I look at ourselves, I think we are putting cricket on a golden plate to our children, and we are paying a huge price for that. But again, I'm still saying that we are doing it out of passion because it's something that we couldn't do.
Yeah.
And we feel that today we are able to do it, so we are making it available for them.
And there's more opportunities now.
And there are more opportunities. So it has become a professional sport where you can think that you can invest and get a return out of it. But the only fear I have is that with all that we are putting on their plate, will they be able to have the hunger and the passion that it's required for the highest level?
It's a great question because I'm a big believer in life that you need a desire, and if you've not got desire,
you will achieve nothing.
You just sit and wait. You just sit and wait. We see people sit and wait. So, you know, how did I personally, if I look at my life, how did I get into professional cricket? It was I was a very shy lad, and I can remember there was nothing worse for me than having to go and trial for a new county.
Yeah.
As a shy person, and you had to rock up into a changing room of professional sports people who you didn't know. Go and introduce yourself. Go and put your skills, your wares out on that field amongst professional sports people.
Yeah.
There was nothing scarier for me. Hated it. Almost sobbing sometimes, not wanting to do it. In my 20s, and you didn't. But the love for cricket and everything else overtook it. But when I look back now, it's set me up for this because it made me realise, you know, the experiences in life are, you know, tough. Cricket was tough. It was a tough gig back then because you had all the internationals playing. So I was the guy who came in when Devon Malcolm and Philip de Freitas or Dominic Court were on international duty. I'd come in.
Yeah.
You might bowl well, but you won't be playing the next game.
Because they are back.
Yeah, because they're back. So, and then if you did play, if one of them was injured, you were the one who bowled at the bad end because they didn't, you know, uphill into the wind while they had a rest. And that's the way it was. So it was just a tough gig. But it was a great learning curve.
It was a great
learning curve. And I'll tell you what was tough, which people don't look at, was so you grow up playing league cricket, you learn how to use the new ball. You open the bowling, you run in, you can swing the ball around corners, you know how to use it. You go into professional cricket, you bowl the wrong end with an old ball, trying to just defend. So all of a sudden you went into a professional arena against players who were far better than you, and you had to learn a new skill on the park.
Wow.
Because you're playing every day. You netted, but that was it. Wow. So, but then you go back to second 11 cricket, and you'd open the bowling with the new ball, do everything that you knew how to do, but then you go back into first team and you'd have to go and bowl old and end up.
Tough.
Yeah.
It was tough. So and then I go back to the topic of the willow and the wood. So which part of England is today, let's say, famous or most popular for harvesting English willow? Is there
it's going right across the country.
It's right across the country?
It's right across the country. Wow. So we use, as far as I'm concerned, the best willow supplier in the world, J.S. Wright's. They're the oldest willow supplier in the world.
Okay.
But they grow all over the country.
Wow.
So I think they tend to miss the southwest because I think it's just too far. It's not cost effective.
Yeah.
But yeah, they grow up in Yorkshire, the borders, sort of the Northern Scottish borders sort of thing. In fact, we've got lots of customers who are farmers who are now planting willow.
Okay.
Because it's a much needed commodity.
Wow,
It's a
it
precious
is.
commodity
It
now
is.
because the market is so huge. So it's the English willow is grown right across the country.
Wow.
You know, and it's a fascinating process. In essence, the process hasn't changed for 100 years. It's just that they've got machines that make it lighter work.
It's a little bit easier,
You know,
yeah.
but when you go, they don't really let people in now, to be honest. But we always go and collect our willow. But I always learn something new every time I go.
Wow.
Because once again, we go back to the trades, it fascinates me.
Wow.
If I lived down there, I'd be working for them.
For
I
them,
love,
yeah,
I
yeah.
love it. Sharon
Wow.
would go and work there tomorrow. She loves it. But yeah, I mean, it's willows. The quality of the willow, for me, is everything. But I personally feel, because the market has got so huge.
Yeah.
I mean, there's companies shipping 100,000 clefts a year. You know, I mean, you only get 30 odd clefts a tree. So how many trees are being cut? So you just look. It's like most things now. Are people appreciating and respecting the product that they're using?
Yeah.
So are we respecting those trees that are being cut all the time? Just by churning bats out, just chucking them out there. I feel as though I've got a responsibility to what we're doing.
Yeah.
I really do. If we could grow cane in this country and make the handles, I'd be making the handles. If I could set up a factory that made all the cricket pads and everything, I'd set up a factory because I truly believe we should have the trades here. And why shouldn't we? But we focus on the willow, so we try and make the best out of everything that we have.
Yeah.
And my remit right from the get-go is, let's make bats that I would have been happy using as a professional cricketer for everyone.
That's fair enough. For everyone. I think
everyone.
This is the statement. The people who choose to play cricket, they deserve to get the gear.
Why is it? Why should the public be paying for their equipment, but not get equipment as good as the professionals are given?
This is a great point. And this doesn't happen, for example, in golf. Because it elite sports, even a junior amateur golfer will get the same quality of equipment as a pro.
So why? Why is that accepted? For me, it's not. And if I sit and think about it, it's because I still remember the joy of having a new bat, or saving up, and getting new. I can remember having, when Ian Botham was like at his pomp, I can remember saving up and getting the cream buckskin pads with the green trim, Duncan Fernley.
Wow.
I can remember it, and they were magnificent. And I'd saved up so I could get them.
Wow.
And I still remember when kids come in, because we do loads of, although we don't advertise junior bats, we do loads of them, mainly for the top end young players, really. Although saying that now, we get a lot of very young kids. We don't normally do below size 4.
Yeah.
But next year we're going to be doing 3s and 2s, because we're getting a lot of people wanting to spend on the younger kids now. But when kids come in, I still remember the excitement now. Even all these years later, this old bloke sat here who used to play a bit of cricket, I still remember the excitement of a kid having a...
Very clear.
And the faces when they come in are brilliant.
Very clear.
You know.
And that will help me combine two questions in one. So one question would be that, is it possible to make a blanket statement that if you have not sourced the right wood, the end product is not going to be as good? And the second thing is there a single parameter that defines a good cricket bat, or it's a combination of a lot of things?
I think it's a combination. For me personally, my viewpoint has always been, I sort of touched on it earlier, what's changed with cricket bats from when I was playing? Why don't they last now? So what's changed? Well, we're using the same, or should be using the same materials.
Yeah.
So English willow, cane handles.
Handles, yeah.
So that's the same. What's changed? Well, through fashions, and I think the big companies have shot themselves in the foot a little bit, really, because they created these big profile bats.
Yeah.
unfortunately, no one's learnt tree language. So they haven't been able to tell the trees to grow lighter to make these big bats that weigh £2.8.
Yeah.
If someone can learn willow language, they will become multimillionaires.
Wow.
Because they'll be able to tell the trees, look, we need you to grow a little bit lighter so we can make these big bats. But it ain't going to happen. So what do companies do, or what do you see with bats now? Well, the things that we've seen totally different to when I was playing are thin handles, thin shoulders, splices around the handles where the handle enters the blade, thin toes. What damage do we see coming in
Shoulder
to the
and-
workshop? Split shoulders, broken toe. So you've got to remember, I'm just a dimwit of a builder. That's all I used to do, and played a bit of cricket. But my common sense thoughts are, well, those are the things that have changed, and they're the bits that are breaking. So why don't we make it like it was?
Yeah.
And make bats last. And that's what we do. In fact, we had our oldest bat in to be refurbed 2 weeks ago. He came and collected it. 2008.
Wow.
I made
So
it.
that was almost 15 years ago.
Yeah, and it's still
Wow.
going.
Wow.
Yeah, but we've got a business within a business doing refurb. So we look at how has the market changed? Well, the profiles have changed. Does
Yeah.
it make people hit the ball further? No, because Ian Botham, Viv Richards, Adam Gilchrist, Graham Hick, Tom Mood, all those people used to hit it a million miles. They just didn't practice it like they do now.
Yeah.
They stand and range hit. But you've got to remember that they were putting it in the stands when it was full size,
Cricket
full of
fields,
stadiums encroached on the
Yeah,
grounds.
yeah.
They were hitting it into the stands then.
Yeah.
So, is it the bats that? No, not really. You know, the bats that for me, playing against. We were talking about this the other day. We once played in a televised game against Worcester when Hick and Moody were playing for him. And it rained. We shouldn't have played actually, because it was televised. So one day, and there was myself and a lad called Kevin Dean. We snatched defeat out of the jaws of victory. We got hit to the moon and back. We couldn't hold this white ball. It was that wet. And Hick and Moody, I've never seen anyone hit it
Wow.
this far.
Yeah.
I mean, Hick hit me over some poplar trees at the side of Derby Ground, which is huge. And I thought that was big, and then I can remember Tom Moody hitting Kevin Dean over extra cover. And it was still going up as it hit the gable end of the pavilion, and it smashed the clock, and it was still going up.
Wow.
And you just stood there and you went, this is just unreal.
Incredible.
But were people hitting it further than to now? No, it's just that people practice hitting it.
Yeah.
You know, they stand in range hit now. But profiles of bats have changed. So yeah, and also a lot of companies are making 4 inches wide instead of 4 1/4 because it loses weight, it makes them look that big. But
Yeah.
so what's changed? Those are the things for me that I see that's changed. So that's why we go. That's why I've gone down the avenue. Right, okay, we've got to make these more modern profiles. Ironically, I bet we've done since Christmas. I bet we've shipped 30 bats over to India this year. But they're going back to my classic shapes, which are based on the bats that Adam Gilchrist used to use,
Wow.
the old screaming cat shape.
Wow.
So people are going. I always feel there's like a bit of the tide's turning in a way, and I think what we do is become a little bit more fashionable.
Yeah.
But obviously, people are still drawn to the brand.
Yeah.
So if they see Joe Root using whatever,
Yeah.
they'll go to that brand. But that's what they do. Half of them aren't using those, but that's the way it is, and
Yeah.
that's the way it's always been.
And we know now that those brands are not selling on the shelves what they are giving it to a Virat Kohli or a Babar Azam or a Joe. There is no way they can put it on the shelf. There's no winning in it.
You know that more than I do. You know, I don't go into shops. I haven't. Well, obviously I make them now, but I've never bought a bat. Probably 30 years.
Wow.
Since I bought a cricket bat.
Okay, fair
you know.
enough.
So, you know, it would be pushing 30 years. I used to, when I was trialling, I was playing more cricket as a trialist than I did as a professional, because I'd be playing in the week, and I'd play at the weekends, but I had to try and get enough money together to buy, so I used to go and buy a butterfly willow when I was playing. When I became a professional, I didn't get the choice, I just got sent bats.
Yeah.
I just still use butterfly willow.
Yeah.
But it went out of fashion, you see, so the Asian market didn't like it particularly.
Wow. So if I go a question back and then we come back to this, is cricket willow graded the same way as willow for other purpose and intent, or the wood grading is different for cricket willow and different for the other type of wood?
No, it's graded differently for cricket.
It's graded differently for
doubt.
cricket.
Okay. Yeah, so it's really, we only use the top 4 grades, so there's a couple of subgrades in that. But in those top 4 grades, it's primarily aesthetics.
It's primarily aesthetics.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, primarily.
Okay. Primarily. Okay.
Below that, you start going into storm damage willow, and you'll get clefts that the class as junior clefts because they've got chunks missing and they want to make a junior size bat. Or we don't deal with those.
Okay.
We only. That's why our junior bats are the same price as adult bats, because we use exactly the same willow.
Okay.
Because my priority for kids is, I've never understood this, is parents nowadays spend a fortune on coaching, and they've got a bat that might as well be a piece of floorboard with a handle in it, and they stand there hitting balls, and it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
So all the coaching goes out the window because they start trying to hit hard. Whereas if you've got a proper bat, you can evolve. It gives you confidence. So I look at it, I'm fortunate that I can look at it from this. As a maker, I can look at it from my memory as a kid playing is not a very strong kid.
Yeah.
So I can look at it from that perspective. I can look at it from a playing perspective. I can look at it from a coach's perspective. And I can look at it as a bat maker's perspective.
Wow. And that brings me to a question where I want to link your current work with your coaching and playing days. Is that, Paul, I come across a lot of players now, young players, who don't understand bats and who don't understand the wicket. They can't read a wicket, they can't read a bat, and they are almost entering the professional arena. So isn't this a lot of lack of education, and is it not going to impact the way they are going to become good players or professional players?
Yeah, I think the way
they can't read wickets.
The way we learn nowadays is different to the way we used to learn when I was younger, because everything's spoon-fed now.
Yeah.
And if you watch most sports at professional level, we saw it with England rugby a few years ago, where there was a situation where the opposition wouldn't go into the ruck, and the England players didn't know what to do. They just stopped because there wasn't a coach telling them what to do, because they couldn't read the game in front of them.
Incredible.
So, whereas when I started trialling, and this sounds incredibly unprofessional really, but cricket, you used to learn a lot of stuff in the bar, talking to people.
Yeah.
When I was playing against Kent in a trial game, and great bowler, Richard Ellison, he's played for England, side-on swing bowler, very similar to what I did.
Yeah.
And he was playing, I didn't know at this time, but Mike Hendrick, my old mentor, he said, right, Richard Ellison's playing, he's had an injury, so he's playing next week. I'm telling you now, after the first day's play, get changed as quick as you can, run into that bar, sit on the bar stool next to the bar, as soon as he comes in, buy him a beer. And I went, right. And he went, he'll talk cricket with you all week.
Oh, wow.
And that's what I did. Whenever I was trialling, every game I did that. and you get people taught. You learnt cricket, even to the point that you'd be on the field playing against them. So if I was running to bowl and Richard Ellison was batting at the non-strikers, you were bowling well, they'd be going, "Don't change it.
Wow.
Don't change it."
Wow.
So you learn on the job by people willing to teach you.
Yeah.
If you were prepared to open yourself up to it.
Wow.
Whereas now, there's so much information. It's no one can learn on their own. It seems it's like if the situation has not been put on a whiteboard for them,
they don't know what to
screen,
do.
They don't know what to do.
Wow.
They don't read it. And I talk to a lot of former playing colleagues who come in and see me. Everyone says the same. It's no coincidence. It's not just me going, you know, the old rose-tinted glasses and all that. No, everyone says it. It's a very common subject that comes up whenever we talk cricket.
And I think this is now getting worse with a lot of statisticians who are sitting in the dressing room and giving you piles of information about the opposition and what you should or shouldn't do. I mean, I didn't play professional cricket, but I'm imagining that if I had a statistician sitting in a room and giving me tons of information, I will just tell him, leave it here and get lost.
Yeah.
I will
It's
do
too much, isn't it?
Exactly.
I mean, you just work. So one of my, would have been my first year on the staff actually, we played against Hampshire at Chesterfield, and Robin Smith was their captain. And
Not Mark Nicholas at that time.
no, he'd just finished.
He just finished,
Robin
okay.
Smith was captain, and Robin Smith was a god. I mean, and
Yeah.
I loved it. Spent some time with one of a great bloke. I loved him. He was always very kind to me as well. But and I used to, one of my big things was I was a good fielder, and I point was my
Thing,
spot.
yeah.
And you knew when he came in, you drop back 10 because he's going to hit this hard. But I always remember, because it was quite quick and bouncy at Chesterfield, it was the first time I played against him, first time I'd seen him in the flesh playing.
Wow.
What did I do? I was never swinging that ball away from him.
Wow.
I was always keeping it tight to him, and then the odd one would go away, because I knew
He'll cut.
he will cut me to ribbons.
Wow.
Because he hit it so hard. But that was instant think off. No one told me. It was going right.
He's good at that.
How do you create damage limitation here? I've just joined the staff. I'm playing against someone who's probably one of the best players of quick bowling in the world. What do you do? What's your plans?
So that helps. That is a lot of self-learning, a lot of information coming out of yourself rather than relying on a coach telling you something from the balcony and so on. So in that way, cricket has changed.
And like you say, I think for youngsters now, it is an overload
of information.
I actually think that there's a danger of them becoming bored of it.
A massive danger in that kind of environment, which is almost corporate. So what made us play cricket was to run away from a lot of governed environment. And now you are telling those cricketers to be in an environment which is a lot governed and a lot of information is there. And I don't know how they are going to cope up with
And the one
this.
thing that they never instill and never say, which is the most important thing for me in anything you do, fun.
Fun. I agree.
Why do we do it? Why do we play sport? Why do we do the things that we enjoy? It's because it's fun. And hopefully we become good at it. Some of us aren't so good at it, but we still have fun.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, for youngsters, if at 18, 19, they're suddenly going, no, you're not going to make it, you might have lost them to the game totally forever. Wow. For me, you know, I might be missing the mark somewhere, but from everything I see and have seen, is the biggest thing is everyone have fun and you'll find your level.
Yeah.
You'll find your level.
No, this is a very important comment. I think we'll emphasize on it when we publish the interview, especially targeting it to younger audiences, that they still need to enjoy the game despite all the people they have in the dressing room who are telling them what to do, what not to do. They still need to enjoy the game and show their skills.
And the fact is, if you become a professional cricketer, the whole emphasis of the game changes anyway, because all of a sudden it's paying your mortgage.
Yeah.
And your bad days are in front of people who are far better than you, and you've got to survive that.
Yeah.
So if you ain't got the fight in here,
then you can't make
and the mental capacity to keep going,
yeah.
you're going to struggle. So if you're just being fed information all the time, you don't know anything else, how do you get yourself out of that
I agree.
situation?
I
You know,
agree. How do you handle yourself?
last year of contract, having a shocker, what do you do?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I was quite lucky in the fact that because I was older when I got the contract, I was 26. You know, my first 2 years I was professional orange juice maker. Really,
Wow.
I travelled around being 12th man, but I loved it. I learned a lot from the international guys. They looked after me because I looked after them.
Yeah.
I did my job properly. My view was, I'm 12th man, do it to the best.
Best 12 men
That you
skills
can.
that you have. Yeah.
I knew all the umpires on the circuit, their
Wow.
drinks after the game. I knew what the players would want at this time of the day, and out of that they let me in. But it was far better than being on the building
Yeah,
sites again.
that's true.
So you either embrace it or you just. But what it did do, so in 1999, so mine was a bit of a mixed thing. So when I joined the staff, my dad was dying. So he had a rapid form
Sorry
of
to hear
dementia.
that,
So my first 2 years, when you're trying to forge ahead, you'd got this incredibly tough situation at home. So in many ways, cricket was a release in some ways. But then, so my dad died in 97. And then I got a 2-year contract then and then. But then in 99, I was on last year contract. So this is where I always think, I know it's me, but it's a great example I always think. I was on last year contract. There was a lot of young lads coming in who were bowlers.
Yeah.
And I was playing in a second 11. We had a 1-dayer and then a 3-dayer against Yorkshire. I took court and bowl, popped my rib. So I got displaced fracture of my rib,
Wow.
resting on the lung. The coach at the time didn't believe that I'd done anything too serious and made me play in the championship. Well, I knew that their physio, the Yorkshire physio, said you need to get off and go to hospital, but I wasn't allowed. So I knew if I stopped, I bowled, but I knew if I stopped bowling, I wouldn't start again. So I bowled 34 overs with this
Wow.
broken rib. Should have been off. That was me done hospital. That was it. I should have been out for 12 weeks. Then all of a sudden, this is just opportunity and just tenacity. I should have been out for 12 weeks. A week and a half later, the phone rang and it was Michael Slater, who was our overseas.
Oh, wow.
He'd taken over as captain because Dominic Cork was captain. He was injured. You know, everyone's injured. We've got no bowlers. How are you
Yeah.
feeling? I said, well, I don't know really. You know, and he says physio wants to see you. So I went in the ground the next day. They said, come and have a bowl. So I had a bowl. Bowled all right, but didn't recover very well. And they went, we'll give you another week. So Slats and I were really good friends, very close. And the first game, they went, right, you're playing the next game. So the first game back was at Lords, which incidentally I made my first class debut at Lords.
Wow.
In my first year on contract. But so we were down at Lords and we'd been out and had a couple of beers a couple of nights before, and I can remember it now. I said to Slatsy, I says, look Slatsy, I've had a couple of 3-fers and 4-fers and I've had catches drop to get the 5.
Yeah.
I'm going to have 1 5-fer. If I'm getting the sack this year, I want 1 5-fer. So this is in July, so beginning of July this game was. So halfway through the season. And he says, we're going to have fun. You'll have what fields you want as long as you bowl well. So I had a nice little 4-fer. We beat Middlesex. I took 50 wickets in half a season.
Wow.
And got my cap against Lancashire. Got 13 in the match against Lancashire.
Wow. Brilliant.
Now, that repaid everything that I'd gone through before that. All the years of trying, not going anywhere. Would that have happened if it had been given me on a plate? Would I have had that fight to
make that happen.
that happen?
That's a great question.
Don't know, because I saw lads that were far more talented than me on the staff that lasted a couple of years. So when it got hard, they hadn't got anything to fall back on almost. So I always look at that as an example, because who'd have thought I'd suddenly become a cap player, you know? And then the reality strikes the next season. I came back from Australia, a better bowler that winter, and I didn't stop.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that's professional sport. So it's how do you mentally cope with
Cope up with that if you are not prepared through your life experiences to manage that situation. So I think it's very good that we are combining the topic of life and cricket and then bringing it back to the.
Isn't cricket's a story of life, really?
It is. And we all have our small or big ones. I mean, if I talk to a Shane Warne or a Viv Richards or a Brian Lara, and we spoke to Sir Curtly Ambrose a few months ago, and I mean, his story is bigger, but ours could be a very smaller one, but it's still a story.
It's relative.
It's relative.
It's relative.
Yeah.
I mean, I had the great fortune of meeting Viv for the first time a few years ago. We did some stuff for an Antiguan cricket exchange.
Yeah.
Just
What a man.
what a man.
What a man.
What a man. You know, and Shane Warne spent quite a bit of time with Shane Warne
what
over
a-
the years. And
If there's a man I miss in cricket,
yeah,
listening to,
Yeah.
watching, it's Shane
I
Warne.
was very fortunate. You know, Dean Jones, the great Dean Jones,
Yeah.
was our captain. And, I miss him. And he helped me a lot when I started this business.
Wow.
You know, a hell of a lot. But what great people.
They're
They're very,
were.
very willing to spend time with you.
Wow.
Straight talking. You know, don't suffer fools gladly, but straight talking and honest. And
I don't know where I found the courage that I would be sitting across on a similar couch with Sir Curtly
Yeah.
Ambrose and speaking with him. He ended up spending 4 hours with us.
he would do, yeah.
And I couldn't believe that a legend like him
Yeah.
will give 4 hours to a channel which is barely getting.
I remember when I got set on the staff, there was myself and a friend of mine called Johnny Owen. We were best friends, and we got set on.
Yeah.
We were the first local lads for years to get set on the staff together.
Okay.
And I always remember him playing against. He said I didn't play that game, but he played against Northamptonshire when Curtly was playing, and he said he went into bat and he hit a 4. He looked and I couldn't look at him because he just stood there and sort of went. And every time he played a delivery, he said, I just walked away with my head down. So I didn't know where to look. I just didn't want to look at him because he looked so fearsome.
So fierce.
Yeah.
And he told us in the interview that I used to tell batters, if you want to drive, go buy a
Yeah,
car.
go buy a car.
You
yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
You can't drive me.
No, that's right. And but you sort of look at that. Those levels. I remember Alan Donald
Oh.
bowling at us at Edgbaston, and he bowled the quickest spell the Devon
We
seen
have
him
heard
bowl.
about it, yeah.
And he hit me, and he bowled quicker second innings. He ripped through a second innings, but first innings just before tea, and he hit me last ball before tea, and I knew the Warwickshire lads, so I trialled there for a couple of years, and they were just laughing at me. But I can remember I just went, boom, it broke my finger, and I stood there. Apparently, I went white as a sheet,
Wow.
and it just suddenly went. That's a different level.
That's a different level.
That's
yeah.
a different. How do you? And you've got to get used to that.
Wow.
And
In
yet,
order to perform.
We had
at-
Darryl. That would have been my first year on the staff because Darryl Cullinan was our overseas.
Uh-huh.
He
Oh.
got 140 odd, and he was just
Oh.
like, and you're going, but it was so quick.
Yeah,
I mean, he was
can
getting Adrian Rollins, 6'6", 6'7", batter, and like from length, just exploding court gully, you know.
Wow.
And one of the funniest things out of that was one of the lads when everyone scattered second innings to be night. They didn't want to be night watchman, and a lad called Simon Bass, I'll do it, South African lad, and he went in. I always remember him saying, "Watch and learn, boys, watch and learn." And he went in, about 20 minutes left, and just swung from there. The ball was going. Surviving the night,
Yeah.
but the next batter was like gloves on, going, "What are you doing, Basie?" But yeah, he bowled the speed of light. It was unbelievable.
Wow.
And he just looked. But that was county cricket.
Yeah. And
It's amazing.
yeah, you had all these people
Yeah.
playing county, and we used to miss them when when Wasim and
Yeah.
Waqar were not playing our
Yeah.
first class, or
Yeah.
and they were busy with Lancashire and other
Yeah.
teams. So yeah, we heard a lot about county cricket in those days. So just to link it back again to professional players today. So if you are a professional player who were to walk into your store and you were to pick a good bat, so is a good bat defined by a single parameter like a number of grains or the balance, or is it different for everybody? Or Paul, how would you define a good cricket bat? Does it define itself, or it's the purpose that defines a good cricket bat?
I think a lot of people get a bit superstitious, and there's a lot of myths. And,
Okay.
You know, I've got former playing mates who get in touch with me and go, just make me the ugliest butterfly you've got.
Wow.
And I don't get many coming in and saying, yeah, I want loads of grains and I want this, that and the other. But personally, from experience, wider grains, I think a good number is 6 to 8 grains
Okay.
on a bat. They last longer and I think they perform better. Multi-grain bats look beautiful.
Yeah.
Often, again from experience, they take longer to open up. They'll become good bats, but they take longer to open up
Mm-hmm.
and often don't last quite as long. Lightweight bats, really lightweight bats, well, they're not as dense, so they don't last as long.
Yeah.
So this is where, you know,
The balance.
feel,
Yeah.
you know, feel of a bat. In the modern profile bats, without kiln drying the wood down
Yeah.
again, making them brittle, it's incredibly difficult to make bats under 2.9,
Okay.
2.10.
Okay.
Incredibly difficult to keep big profiles. There's not many. You don't get that many light willow clefts that
Yeah.
will make those. You want, you know, people go, I want 40mm edges, I want maximum spine, you know, 70, what is it now, 68mm spines. And when you're going, yeah, but as I said earlier,
You don't know the willow language as well.
yeah, that's right. So what do? Where's your compromisers? We go back to compromisers are thin handles, thin toes, thin shoulders,
Yeah.
narrow bats.
Yeah.
How do you do it? So for me, when I was playing, the most important thing was, he looks at, oh, that looks nice. How's that? Ping a ball on it.
Yeah. That's
Happy
it.
days.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so people get a little bit hung up, and part of the market has been very clever, the Asian market, because there's one brand in particular goes £2.8 or £2.7. Well, £2.7 is £2.11 ounces.
Correct.
So they don't read the numbers correctly.
They go, oh, it's
yeah.
2.7.
2.7. Oh,
Great, but it's actually £2.11
11
ounces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Very clever.
Yeah.
Cheeky.
And also, a lot of, and I'll say this, a lot of from pros who've come in over the years, they'll go, oh yeah, I use a 2.9. Well, they're in there while it's being made. It's 2.9 before it's got all its grips on. Well, you're binding it and putting your grips on,
Yeah.
it's 3 ounces. So all of a sudden it's 2.12,
Yeah.
not 2.9. And I defy anyone who's not picking bats up all the time to know the difference by an ounce
Yeah.
or two.
Difficult.
You know, yeah. It's about feel.
It's about feel.
Yeah, it's about
It's
feel.
about feel. It's the balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, like you've been in there, if you're using thicker handles, the handles weigh more.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
But that weight's under your hands.
Yeah, and that helps with the balance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the blades, probably the same weight as another branded B, but it's got a heavier handle. So the weight's going to be different, but it's under your hands. People wouldn't think twice about having a pair of batting gloves that weigh an ounce heavier each
Yeah.
glove. They wouldn't know.
Never know.
But all of a sudden, and ironically, because of the thin handles that we see coming in all the time, they go, yeah, I've got to have it 2.9, but they've put 3 grips on it.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden it's 2.14, 15.
So this is what we did. Let's say the other brands, a lot
Yeah.
of bats Mickey was using, he was not satisfied with the handle. So he said, I need 2 grips.
Yeah.
And why can't you do a better handle if rather than putting 2
Yeah.
grips or 3 grips on?
So you hung up on scale weight, it's got to be 2.9, but you've got 3 grips on it
Yeah,
to make
I
it
agree.
2.14, 2.15.
I agree.
So there's so many myths, and I always say, look, there's nothing really complicated about this. If it pings
Yeah.
and it feels
Feels
right,
good.
it is right.
It is right. Yeah.
There's no,
Yeah. And the other common sense thing which you mentioned repeatedly to us today is that the most common damage is digging out a yorker, so it's in the bottom, and the most common damage is on the shoulders.
Yeah.
And you keep buying bats which are thin on the shoulders, thin on the bottom. You are killing yourself basically with
Well,
that
it's a
kind of choice.
combination, isn't it? Because the trends have gone to flat faces on cricket bats, so you don't get any deflection from the ball.
Yeah.
So if the ball hits off centre and it's a flat face,
It
it
breaks.
twists more.
Yeah.
So people think of the stress points of a cricket bat is where you hit the ball. It isn't. The stress points really are through the top area,
Yeah.
the splice area, because of all the twist.
Happening. Yeah.
The stress from the handle
Yeah.
inside that blade.
True. True.
So impact stress is a different thing to the actual stress
Stress.
of.
And can we just also check in this question with this same one?
Yeah.
That these bats, yes, the balance and the feel should be all right, but what about the concept around the round edges and the flat bats at the bottom, right?
Right, square toes.
Yeah.
The square toes and the round
It's a fashion, isn't it?
Well,
Fashion.
Square toes are a fashion. It actually makes the bat look wider. It's an optical illusion.
Yeah, it's an optical illusion. Exactly.
But-
yeah.
How
Yeah,
many
right.
people do you see? I've actually seen 2 really bad injuries through square toes.
Because they got stuck
One,
into the.
one dislocated shoulder, and one tore his groin because he's gone slide the bat in, and the corner's dug in, and they've gone. Yeah. Now you watch a lot of cricketers now. They put the bat on the back.
Yeah.
Well,
sliding.
Actually, in reality, the toe isn't touching the ground, so he can be run out far easier because you're not going to put it face down because that will dig in.
Yeah.
So if it's on the back, the toe sits up, doesn't it? The bottom of the bat.
Technically, you can get run
Sits
out.
up, so it's
Take
not
us away.
touching or.
So
yeah.
you're not using a full length of a bat to
Yeah.
get back in your crease.
That's true.
So we sort of, as a sort of more roundabout, we round the corners off, so
Yeah.
it'll slide in.
Fair enough.
You know, so it's a trend, but also what it does, they're easy to break as well.
Very true. And that brings me to, let's say, as we are progressing into this topic, that brings me to a question of professional players playing different formats. So like Kohli is a multi-format player, Babar is a multi-format player, Joe Root is not playing a lot of T20 internationally, but he's still playing a lot of leagues. So do these guys need to have different bats for different formats, or they use the same thing across?
I think they use pretty much
It's
the
the
same
same thing? Yeah.
because I look back, the only thing you might do is use a slightly heavier one, a slightly lighter one, but generally, if you're comfortable with something,
You use it across formats.
you want to keep hold of your best bat
Okay.
for as long as possible.
Okay.
Actually, a lot of county cricketers go through bats like you won't believe. They just break. Well, that's because they've probably got sponsors that just import bats, put a label on, and they just break. Well, that goes against everything that I grew to understand when I was playing professional cricket, because you wanted your best bat with you at all times. So the better it got, the more you wanted
You
it.
want it, yeah.
And so you'd treasure it. You'd perhaps net with your second bat because you knew you've got to get used to that at some point. But you'd net with your second bat and then finish your net off with your favourite just to
Yeah.
finish off. But I don't think, I've never been asked to do, people just go, oh, you know, something 210, 212, you know, and they use them and they keep
Wow.
using them.
Wow.
I can't see, you know, not having been in the changing rooms with them now, but I can't see it's changed.
Very clear. And there is a slight repetition in this second question, but maybe it's linking to the previous one. Do you need to have different bats for practice than for match?
No, I don't think so. I think what I would say is you, again, just touched on it there, you'd savour your best bat.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'd have a bat that's very similar. Because no two bats will ever feel the same. You could have everything copied to within the nearest millimetre. But wood's a natural product, isn't it? It'll be balanced slightly differently. So you can't imitate the natural balance of something. All you can do is try and balance it out the best way. So your second bat, well, your favourite bat's your favourite bat for a reason. You've scored your best bat. I don't care what anyone says. It could be an absolute plank of a bat, But if you've scored all your runs with it, it's your best bat.
Yeah, that's true. It's psychological also.
Yeah. So if you've got a bat that you are scoring runs with, you will stick with it. And if actually watching in the Ashes, because it was a fantastic series to watch, wasn't it? And
It was.
you look at quite a few of the players there, and they were using bats that look battered and bruised. They're keeping them going. They've got bits of tape around them.
Yeah.
Their faces
And
are
they're still
going
using
on.
those,
They're still
yeah.
using it.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's their favourite bat.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. So there is the element of psychology around it. I would just again link these two more questions. So, one thing is the spine height, the position of the spine, and also the grains. So, you already busted the myth that fewer grains. Does it mean more punch? Does the fewer grain means more punch, or it's the other way around?
We're sort of forgetting one vital element here is the skill of pressing.
Yeah. So
And the quality of handles for me. Because people forget that the handle is a separate entity to the blade.
Yeah, it is.
So the quality of that handle
Plays a massive role.
Yeah. So, but then the way you press each clef. So if you've got a press that is just set weight, not every piece of willow wants to, for me, you know, others might say different, but not every piece of willow wants to be pressed the same way.
Wow.
Some want more, some want less. So that is the skill of a bat maker.
Wow.
You know, people talk about soft press bats. How do you soft press a bat? That just means under pressing, because then you've seen cricket bats that are that soft. A cricket ball hits it and it didn't sit.
It dents.
Yeah. So all that's doing is that ball's actually pressing it.
Yeah.
But because it's not been pressed enough to start with, it's breaking it up as it does it. So its lifespan will be short.
Yeah, that's
It'll
true.
feel nice and soft. Oh, this will be a good bat. But then it's gone.
Yeah, I agree.
Whereas-
you see the grains coming apart.
Whereas
Yeah.
we mentioned it earlier, didn't we? When I was playing, you sort of went with a view that when you first had a hit with a bat, you go, oh, this will be a beauty. And the more you used it, the better it got.
Wow.
And then it would keep getting better until sort of towards the end of its life, where it would be at its best, and then something had happened to it, handle would go, and you'd be heartbroken. But that's how it used to be. Whereas now it seems that a lot of bats, you've seen some in there where they've just broken, and they're barely, they're just a mass brand, but the toes have gone, or the middles have fell out of them because they've just not lasted. Why? That's what I can't get around in my head. It's because, is it because we're cutting corners for costs or what? I don't know. But my view is, if it's the same wood as we used to use, the same materials, then it should be acting like it used to.
Yeah.
For me, others will disagree, I suppose, but that's my viewpoint of it, because that means that the public's getting good value for money, because they're getting a few years out of a bat rather than just.
I agree. And one thing we can say, I mean, people make a lot of comparison, which is through the naked eye. They say that today's profiles are thicker, bigger, and so on. And in the older days, the bats were thinner, which is true. But one observation I have, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that in the older bats, they were not compromising on the shoulder and the bottom of the bat.
No, they were very deep.
They were very deep.
Yeah,
and
very
nowadays, while they made the profiles bigger, they compromise a lot on the toe and the
You've
shoulder.
got to get the weight out somewhere, haven't you?
Exactly.
And there's only certain ways of doing that, and that is thinning certain areas off while you're trying to keep the main area bulky. But also trying to get as much moisture out your willow as you possibly can to.
That's true. That's true.
To make them lighter.
That's
so,
true.
as we say, there's compromises everywhere, really, but that's where we sort of go the other way. We just go, right, okay, so we work more on feel than actual pure scale weight, and I don't question it too much. I always go with a view: if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Don't question it. Just do it. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I've always stuck with that. Yeah,
very nice. And with that, you have actually answered a lot of questions that we wanted to ask in between. I mean, about the ping, the punch, the grains. I think you have combined it so well that that I think we have got answers to a few questions while we are talking about still the same issue. So now we'll go to a set of questions which are rather generic. But before I go to that, I have one last question which is a bit technical. I have two questions which are technical, and then we go to the last remaining generic. So the two technical questions are that why do concaving or no concaving? I mean, I used to like concaving because it looked good aesthetically early on, but as we started to get more deeply involved, we actually started to dislike concaving. So what is it about concaving, Paul? I mean, is it good, bad? Why do people do it?
Well, you've got to get weight out, haven't you?
Yeah, okay.
So I don't like concaving.
Okay.
I'm a traditionalist. If it was me, I'd still be using the classic profiles.
Okay.
Because for me, it makes no difference how you're hitting it. It's just a profile. So concaving is a way of getting weight out of the wood.
Okay.
The bigger the bat, the more weight there is.
Mm.
So there isn't enough willow light enough to make full profile bats all the time, the weights that people seem to think they want. So for me, obviously we put concaving in our bats, but it's quite minimal. If you put a straight edge across it,
Yeah.
it'd only be a few mil. You see a lot of companies in the past, not so much since they changed the dimensions for the rules.
Yeah.
But you used to get concaving, you'd have these big edges, and the concaving would drop down below the edge and then a sharp upturn to a high spine. Well, what's that achieving? Because you've cut all the guts out the back to try and keep big edges.
Yeah.
For me, from a playing perspective, I always look at it. If you're trying to hit 4s or 6s in front of the wicket, you're never going to hit a 4 or a 6 in front of the wicket on the outside inch of your bat.
It has to be in the.
It's got to be in the middle.
Yeah.
You will behind square because you're hooking, pulling,
Yeah.
and you're basically creating deflection.
Yeah. Correct.
So it'll carry.
It goes. Yeah. Yeah.
In front of the wicket, no. So people still hit 4s and 6s with the old thin edge bats behind square, and they used to hit them out the middle in front of
Straight,
square.
yeah.
So for me, all the edges it's wasted wood, really.
Yeah.
But we have to pander to it because it's a fashion.
Fashion. Okay.
For me, as a player, and I look and I go, why do you get hung up on, with constant, I want 40mm edges, I want this. And you go, but why? Why? And plus, we never do 40mm edges because our bat faces have got a radius on them of 5mm.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but that for me helps with longevity as well because you get a bit of deflection with it.
True.
It's only mild, but it stops twisting the blade. But yeah, so for me, concaving, I don't like it, but it's a necessity to get weight out of the bat.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, to be honest, there's only so much you can do with the
Yeah,
bat,
I agree.
with
And
a cricket bat shape.
it's not all aesthetic. I mean, obviously, it has got something to do with the weights, the dimension as well. It's not only aesthetic.
Yeah, I mean, a shape. If a bat's made, for me, if a bat's made properly and pressed well, a shape is a shape.
It is a
It's what pleases your eye.
Yeah.
If it picks up well, and it's got a big middle,
It's perfect.
it's a good
It's
bat.
good to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good to go. So now I will, because you already answered our questions about the handles and so on, that the vital role that the handles play. And since I have seen your handles, I have actually started to doubt why do we have circular handles at all in place. I mean, I have started to doubt it actually, but maybe they have their own reasons. We are at the last few generic questions which are more related to your company, your business in general. And what would you say, and now we know because we have been talking for the last few hours, but just if you have to sum up in a few lines to the general viewer who will be watching this video for the first time, what makes Aldred Cricket Bats different from, let's say, the common brands or the big brands which are out there? A few lines just to give them a chunk.
Well, I make them.
Make them, yeah.
But it's a bit like asking the question, isn't it? What's the difference between going down the road to your local master craftsman cabinet maker and having your dining room table there made there, or you go and buy it from IKEA.
I got the answer.
Yeah.
And we know why we hate IKEA.
So there's room for everyone.
There's room for everyone.
But we're not in the mass market. We do what we do because I love doing it. But also we just think I have to look at it slightly differently because it's me.
Yeah.
But I've got a background, I think, that helps give something different.
Very well understood, I think, through the initial part of the conversation, why you are doing what you are doing. It has a background.
And I think that's, so at the end of the day, as I said earlier, I liken it to my cricket career is, you're in the spotlight. It's my name on it. I'm a local lad, so I want people to be happy.
Yeah.
You can't please everyone in the world.
Yeah,
we
that's
know
true.
that. But
That's true.
the fact is, for us, we're not only are we creating a product, we're creating a skill. We're teaching skills.
This is fantastic.
Yeah.
This is a very good element of conversation which I think we would like to highlight, that the way you are helping the apprentices learn the art of bat making rather than everything being shipped out to countries where it's
and
low
we're trying
cost.
to re-educate people.
Re-educate people,
because
exactly.
people, if you think about it, we were talking about this the other day. So it was sort of the end of the 90s when I started really seeing a lot of all the imports. Everything went abroad and was imported. I finished playing professionally 2003, and they started coming in then. Now, if you think that's, so 2000, so 24 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, you've got 20 years of people not knowing any different. But really, you've got 30 years, because if kids were born in the early 90s, as 10, 11-year-olds, they wouldn't have known about cricket bats at that age.
True.
So you've got 30 years of people that don't know
No,
anything different other than bats being brought into the country.
Yeah.
There's only been the odd maker,
Yeah.
really. So I think, not just in cricket, but in construction, in anything that's artisan, people have lost the knowledge. So I find it, I'm always learning from different things.
Yeah.
And, you know, we built the workshop. We learnt new skills doing it.
Yeah.
Could remember, I knew a lot of them, but we had learnt new skills. You're learning all the time, but we've had 30 years of people that know no different.
This is a big thing, and you see, there's a general misconception also about people coming from our part of the world, let's say India, Pakistan, China, Southeast Asia, Africa, that, you know, these people do not value the craftsmanship, or they are just concerned about the mass production. I came from the southern tip of Karachi, which was the old town, and we know that the door that has been fixed on my grandma's house was done by a person who did my kitchen cabinet in 2020. 2020.
Yeah.
So we knew the legacy that has been transferred from a craftsmanship of 40, 50 years into making. But at the same time, people have a general perception that people who come from this part of the world, they don't value craftsmanship.
No.
It's actually the other way around, but the problem is, with what we have been fed in information and in commercialism, we are losing that. And this is why it was important for me to come to you today, meet you, and convey this message to youngsters that there's a skill we need to value and admire.
And, I mean, I'd love to think that maybe this business carries on. So we haven't got children, but I'd love to think that maybe this business could carry on and be as it is, with another generation of people
why
doing
not?
it. You know,
Why not?
I know Neil would like to carry it on.
Wow.
But we live all these mobile devices, simple things like music. I mean, we were talking about this the other day. It used to be so exciting as a kid when the new album came out and you'd be going to wait at the record store so you could go and get the album. And it was a big thing.
Yeah.
It was an experience. You saved up for it. Well, you just get music on the internet now. It's lost an element of beauty.
Yeah, I agree.
That's where, not just with what we do, I think it's happened across the board of everything. And I mean, there's some fine companies out there making cricket bats, sports equipment, whatever. But my view is, do we do the same as everyone else? No.
No, but
No.
then I would say that we can sum up in a way that while there is a desire for Aldred cricket to grow, but not at an expense of craftsmanship and not at the
No,
expense
because
of those.
I've seen over the years, when I was growing up, there was some fantastic bat companies out there, unbelievable bats, and they went big, and the quality just died.
Yeah,
and that's something that I've said I'd avoid like the plague,
Wow.
because I don't want to do that. I'm happy making a nice living, working hard. I enjoy being busy.
Agreed.
You know, so if I can make an honest living doing it, if it makes me, it'll never make you a millionaire, but if it makes you wealthy as a person,
In your
in
experiences,
your
and your
experiences
satisfaction.
and your satisfaction of life, brilliant. But for me, just going big. Anyone can get a machine to do something, but
Yeah, in a small workshop.
What are you
yeah.
achieving?
Yeah, what are you
achieving? You're not.
And-
You just churn it.
And
out.
what is your niche? What
Yeah.
separates you from
Yeah.
the rest?
Yeah.
So, Paul, thank you. You have been very kind and gracious for us for giving us all this time. I'm at the last two questions. So, you have been involved with disabled cricket. This is what we read in your
Yeah.
profile. Is that being looked after well? Is there more required to be done on that segment?
I think there is. I've not been involved for quite some time now, but I
Yeah.
used to be. I helped a lot with the Derbyshire Disability Cricket, and we did a lot for the deaf cricket,
Yeah.
and we did some visually impaired stuff as well, which was quite interesting. But in fact, we still get. In fact, we've got someone coming soon, like a young lad who's got. This is where Loughborough University. We mentioned Loughborough University,
Yeah.
which is one of the world's best.
I mean,
sort of
we
sporting-
have heard references of Loughborough
Yeah.
University. I'm coming from Karachi and
Yeah.
Dubai, you can imagine. So, it definitely has a name and
Well,
a place.
We've done a lot in the past where people have got a hand disability and they struggle to hold the bat. So
Wow.
we've taken them to Loughborough University and they've
Wow.
gone, oh, right, okay, we can create this for you. And we've got a young lad, he'll be 12, and he's basically, his fingers are short and he's got,
Wow.
he can grip with his thumb and forefinger, but it's his top hand. So we've put him in fact there's a second one this year actually, we've put him in touch with Loughborough, and we go, right, okay, well we can do this, and we can, like the handle, we've changed the shape of the handle for the top hand for him, so he's got like a flat spot that he can grip. And then we go, and this is from cricketing experiences as well. There was a guy who used to play for Derbyshire, open the batting for
Yeah.
New Zealand, called John Wright. Great left-handed batter. And he once superglued his batting glove to his bat handle because he felt right with it. And there's a photo somewhere.
John Wright did that?
And there's a photo
Wow.
somewhere of him walking off the field, raising his bat with his glove still attached to his
Wow.
handle.
Wow.
And we've gone, well, why can't someone like that, why can't we have something that attaches his glove to give him a little bit more purchase? And so we look at things like that because we understand from a coaching point of view the needs of,
For such things,
for such things. So how can we help him? What does he feel like? How can we help him advance that and help him carry on with his love for the cricket, even though he's got that disability?
Wow.
And we actually really enjoy doing it because it's something different,
Wow, that's fantastic.
you know. And actually, the joy of their faces
Wow.
is just part of it.
This
you know.
this is fantastic, and this is why we wanted to touch upon this topic. So I have a very last question, Paul, for you, and that question is that what advice would you give to a young budding cricketer, not only about the game but also in general about when he goes and picks up a cricket bat? So one advice for his life, his career and game, and one advice when he walks into a cricket store next time and wants to pick up a bat that will do wonders for him.
Well, I think cricket-wise, the more you put into it, commitment-wise, the more you get out of it. And that
Wow.
doesn't mean hours and hours of coaching or hours. It means committing. It means giving your all with your friends. And the biggest thing we touched on earlier that people forget is fun. Why do we do it? It's fun.
Wow.
Why did I play cricket? Because I loved it. I wanted to be good at it, but I had fun playing cricket with my mates, and I had even more fun getting better at it.
Wow.
Now, picking a cricket bat, the couple of basic things that I'd always say is, and it's quite tricky for people because lots of cricket bats have toe guards on these days,
Yeah.
which I spit on now because I hate the things with a passion. But they have them on. When you go and look for a cricket bat, firstly pick it up, see if it feels nice.
Yeah.
Get a ball on it and just ping a ball up. Does it feel nice? Compare it to some others. But look at the toe end on. Make sure the grains are as straight through that toe
Wow.
as you possibly can.
Wow.
You don't want them on an angle. You want them as straight as possible. And that generally gives you a chance of having a bat that will last a little bit. Because if the grains are on an angle, it's sort of, you've got weak points. But if they're straight, that's your ping point as well.
Wow.
The ball will pop off it a little bit
Wow.
more if it's been pressed properly. So if it pings and it picks up well,
Fantastic.
yeah.
This
but,
is what you need
But
then.
if you go to it, and we say it, whenever anyone comes in here, I always go, look, to get a good bat, you don't need to buy the plays, you don't need to buy the grade ones. Look at our mid-range down, because you'll get just as good a bat who've just got some marks in it.
Wow.
But it's keeping the money in your pocket
Yeah.
rather than putting it in mine. And
that's incredible that you are still giving this advice while
I
you are
do.
selling the top end stuff as well.
but yeah, but we do.
Yeah, that's
People
fantastic.
still want the top end stuff
Yeah.
because they love it. But if I was buying it,
You'll go
what
for
would
a
I-
butterfly.
what would I buy?
Yeah.
What
yeah.
would I buy? I know I can stand in all honesty and go, what would I have? So when all the years I was trialling, I used to have butterfly willow. It was 150 quid back then.
Wow.
So it was quite expensive, early
Yeah.
90s.
Yeah.
But I used to have butterfly, and the first year was when I was trialling, it was the most expensive because I had to buy two. But one lasted me through. My
Wow.
second one had lasted me through. So the next year I only had to buy one if I needed one.
Wow.
Sometimes I didn't need one. But so that's how I did it. That's how I funded myself.
Wow.
So I learned to be savvy. And when people come in, I try and teach them to be savvy as well.
This is fantastic because parents like us, unfortunately or fortunately, we are spoiling our kids with 5 or 6 cricket bats in their gear. But I think I'm doing it for the love of exploring
Yeah.
it. So
Also what we do for parents, which they love, and you can only do it if you make your bats, is if kids are in between sizes, because it's so expensive for parents.
yeah, it is.
So if a kid's sort of in between, say, a size 5 and a size 6, he's not quite there, but they've come for a new bat, but it's still really size 5, we go, because we balance them out so well,
Yeah.
we go, right, because obviously the tough thing for kids is they grow up now playing cricket with plastic bats.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the thing, cricket bats are going to weigh nothing for the rest of their life because they can waft them around and do whatever. Well, you go up in sizes, you go up in weights.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
part of the skill is balancing stuff out to make them not feel as heavy.
As heavier.
So if they're in between a size 5 and a size 6, so they're growing but they're still really size 5, we go, right, why don't you have, rather than buying another bat next year, why don't you have a size 6 blade?
Now, yeah.
And we'll put a super short handle in it, so it's a size 5 overall.
Wow.
Then when he grows, it's 50 quid to change the handle, whatever.
Wow. Wow.
And the parents go, can you do that? Yeah,
Yes.
oh, that's brilliant, thanks very much. And the kid's got a bat for a couple of years while he's growing that he trusts and knows, and the parents aren't spending a fortune.
And comes back and changes the handle. Fantastic.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask this question earlier, but I have just got it now, and I don't want to go without asking it. My son plays baseball as well, and in baseball, when I went to US and I shopped around for baseball bats, I saw they have very good fiber bats and now
Yeah.
aluminum bats, which are not allowed. I think the pros don't use it;
No,
they
they're
still
not
use the
allowed to,
wood
yeah,
ones.
that's right.
But on practice and in the second
Yeah.
division, they use. Would you? I mean, I know your love and passion for it, but if you see somebody again trying an aluminum bat or a fiber bat at professional level, would you support it for any format or category or not at all?
No, I don't think so. There's an intrinsic, for me, an intrinsic value of what cricket is, and it's got a history, and there's a history there to be looked after.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
They've tried to bring these bamboo bats in, and we had actually someone bring a bamboo
Wow, really?
cleft in, because he works in that industry, and he says, "Can you?" And he asked me for the dimensions. He bought this cleft in that was, no, it was just the raw cleft. So
Wow.
he cut it to the size that we get our clefts. So if you imagine a cleft from the willow suppliers, they vary in weights, but if you average them out when they arrive around the £4.10, £4.12 mark as a real cleft, this bamboo cleft, same dimensions, was £10 in weight.
Wow.
And I went,
So
well,
after all the
how
trimming,
are you
and-
going to make it?
Yeah.
How are you going to get the weight down? So you'd have to engineer it so to be hollow, it to be a lot of engineering to do it. But they're only doing it because of the greed of the industry at the minute, that the people can't. We on a constant basis get companies from India and Pakistan asking us for our willow clefts to buy them off us.
Wow.
Well, we won't sell them, but because they can't get them, they can't get hold of them.
Wow.
The demand is so big.
It's so big. Yeah.
So, for me, no, there's something. My values of cricket are, there's a history there, and there's a history to be kept,
Fair enough.
and I think that's quite important. People will try different things, won't they?
Really appreciate.
One thing I think that
Yeah.
the laws will have to change at some point. I think they'll have to change what's allowed in a handle, because from what I understand, the shortage of cane is becoming a bit of an issue.
Wow. Okay.
So how do you keep that going? In reality, they've got to find another
Alternate,
natural
yeah,
product
yeah.
or a man-made product that performs very similar.
Wow.
For me, I think that's something that might have to change.
Wow.
But-
Interesting.
Yeah, but I could go out and buy a cricket bat handle for £3.50, £3.80, but I pay £11 for mine.
Wow.
So I'm made how I had them in my bats.
And your handles are unique.
I think the cane handles are sourced from Pakistan as well, right?
I think they're all over Malaysia, Malaysian cane.
Yeah. We have a lot
Yeah.
of cane farming
Yeah.
in Pakistan, India,
Yeah.
Brazil, South
Yeah.
America.
We've had a go at making them. It's just so time consuming. We don't have. I would make them, but you can't guarantee the cane, and the time it takes to do it. It's not viable really.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, like I've said earlier, if it was down to me, I'd make literally everything I could.
yeah.
But
Including the grip, maybe.
yeah, I would. Yeah.
So really appreciate, Paul. Thank you very much. I mean, for all the time you have given us. I think we enjoyed this conversation. It can go on for me for another 5 hours, but we have to respect your time and availability.
No,
and
thank
you
you.
have
It's
been
been
very
lovely
gracious.
meeting you.
No, really appreciate it, and I hope this is the start of a long association, and we'll keep coming back to you. We'll see how we can support not only you in terms of business, but in terms of promoting the qualities that young cricketers should admire, rather than going for the commercial stuff. And they pay top dollar for buying that. So why not look at what Aldred is doing here, and
Well,
appreciating-
our prices, when we look, people keep telling us, "Oh, you way too cheap," and you go, I nearly cried when I had to put my prices up this year.
Yeah.
When my top end had to hit £500 mark, because it had to. But I mean, we only put our prices up by 2%, but the general prices went up over 20%.
No, but the commercially
so-
available brands are also very expensive, and we see what they are selling in Dubai.
And the problem is that with the commercial available brands, they can ask whatever money they want, but at least they should provide that quality as well.
And they are not.
We're
They are
missing that quality in the market.
for a 400, 500 pound bats from a, let's say, company A, B, which is in the top tier, they will be selling us something below the butterfly. I mean, this is for sure, because I gave you an example that I went onto that shop and saw a bat, saw 6 bats which were going to a top batter in today's time. I mean, he is the top batter in the world today, and it was going to them. And I said, can you give me the same thing from your shelf? And they said, there's no chance you can get it from the shelf what we are sending it to the guy.
And that's just a sign of, I mean, we've always known that to get, I always knew when I was playing cricket that to get a bat out of a shop like we wanted as pros, you'd probably get 1 in 100.
Yeah, that's
and you'd have to do a real big hunt for it.
Yeah.
Or nick it off some professional.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've one passed down. But I'd sort of hinted on it earlier. My thing has always been, I was privileged to be given cricket equipment. I was sponsored and felt, and we were talking about it in there before we did the camera stuff. But when I joined the staff, we got seasoned international batters who felt privileged to have a sponsorship.
Yeah.
And at the end of every year, they used to go to their sponsor with a box of wine as a thank you because they appreciated everything that they did for them because they realised how much money it cost.
Yeah.
You know, we can nowadays we've supported young players, and they've had thousands of pounds worth of kit, and then a big company will come in. You know, you've supported them into the success, and a big company will come in and offer them a couple of grand, and they've just had a load of stuff off you again, and then they go. So there's no loyalties, but there's no loyalty in cricket anymore because people flip from one county to the other. It's not like so things have changed, times have changed, and we appreciate that. But I just think if you're paying, if you went out and bought a Ferrari, you wouldn't expect a mini engine in it, would you?
Yeah, no, we'll not. Yeah, we'll not.
So why should it be different? If you're paying
this
money,
I question a lot.
Yeah.
This I question a lot on why we have to still spend top dollars and not get the same gear as the professionals
that's how I
using.
look at it. Is if I was paying money, I'd want to have
I agree.
my money's worth.
But this is what I saw in US in baseball stores, big baseball stores in Texas, in Houston. They were not compromising on that.
No.
So you could buy exactly the same gear as a pro was using on the field. So
and I think that's important. And I think really, you know, we'll always be a small business. We always will be. But we have 1,000 bats or so pass through here every year. We've got a business within a business with refurbs and repairs. More and more. I mean, we've had, since Christmas, we've had 200 of our own brand come in to be refurbed.
Because they were still good enough to be used with minor
6, 7, 8,
years?
9 years old.
Wow.
You know, one of them from 2008.
That's fantastic.
So we've always wanted to do that, and that's coming more and more because we've got more bats out there. So, but we just look at it and think, if I look at it from what I used to think is, what's the best value? How do we look at it? So if we can guide parents into, look, why don't you go for this? In many ways, it's good for us because if you've got the kid and he loves it, you've got him for quite a long time.
It's that you create loyalty through that. Yeah.
And if you look after parents' pocket, you've got their loyalty as well. So if you're honest,
we would remember it. I mean, for today, our youngsters are now marching towards professional cricket. Hopefully, they will make it to a certain level. But we will not forget the joy that they had using the Aldred bats, and I hope it stays with them for a long time. Paul, thank you very much. I have to say really big thanks for you have been gracious with your time and your availability. Really appreciate it.